Hi there, welcome to Strictly Ball Business. Alec here with Dalton, ready to talk about some exciting topics in the NBA, including where players might land. And we're going to start out with talking about our boy Lauri Markkanen, a guy who was really exciting coming into the NBA, but really has trended downward most of the season since then, especially as a defensive player. And we're going to talk a little bit about where he might land and what we can expect out of him next year. So, Dalton, why don't you let me know what you think?
So it's actually been a super slow free agency. Like I'm really surprised nothing's happened. I What's taking so long is the Bulls are really trying to figure out a sign and trade for these teams. It looks like the front runner is the Mavericks. They're just trying to do a Maxi Kleba swap with Lauri. I think it makes enough sense, or I think enough. It would help enough on each side. I mean, they're essentially the same player. Lauri has a little more upside and a little more potential aside. Like he's had better seasons. Like in his 2019 season, he averaged 18 points a game. Uh, where is it? Yeah, 9 rebounds. I think if he could be that player on another team, that's more than they could ask for. And I think the Mavericks on their timeline, they want to be better. But I think if they took on Lauri and hoped he could play the small forward or even power forward, if they keep Kristaps around and he plays center, uh, I think that could fit enough. If Porzingis figures out his defense, I think that would be fine. Lauri on his best day, he's just knockdown shooter, can make plays for himself. Not a good playmaker for his team. He's just over the years, zero point 0.9 assists last year, 1.5 assists, 1.4 assists. Not ideal. Not even good. It's just those assists were just like he happened to pass it to somebody who made it. And
Yep.
But I think that's fine with when you have Doncic on that team. He's going to be the primary ball handler anyway, and Lauri's usage isn't huge. And he came into the league, they know he was just going to be a stretch four, and that's what he can be. I don't think it's that he's gotten worse. I just think it's been a decreased role, and he hasn't been able to fit into it with the Boston Celtics. And I'm not Celtics, Chicago Bulls. They've just been iffy on what they want to do with him. And I think they would take Maxey, a guy who knows his role. He can just get in there, shoot some threes, play all right defense. He's still not that defender that the Bulls don't have that guy that's going to I'll take on the best player on the best team yet. And Maxey's not that guy, but four that can shoot as well as Maxey, that can't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, only reason it makes sense for the Bulls is Lauri doesn't want to be there anymore, and they can get a guy who still, does what Lauri does, can shoot the ball and play the four position, but maybe come in with a better attitude. Seems like they were asking for at least a first-round pick from other teams if, something like they can't get a solid player in return. And to me, that just makes no sense. Obviously, that's a big hang up for why this hasn't happened yet. Like teams aren't exactly jumping at the chance to pay Lauri $15 million and trade a first round pick for him. It wouldn't make sense.
No, yeah. I had one other team that could possibly trade for him, and I had Serge Ibaka for Lauri and TBJ, Troy Brown Jr. Just easy sign and trade. I think if the Clippers would ever decide to do it, it's just because Ibaka's been injured a lot of his time with the Clippers. And I think they just want maybe to bring in some young talent. Kawhi's gone this year. I think they're this is a year for seeing how far we can go. And I think Lauri isn't the defensive solution. I think they're a good enough defensive team. And this would mean starting Zubac and giving him more minutes, but I don't think that's the worst thing this year. I think the worst case scenario is you give Lauri all these minutes. He turns out to be that 18-point per game scorer, and you flip him for something better as a win now. I think Clippers could take that. And plus, Troy Brown Jr. is just a decent rotational player. He's always a good trade candidate. So,
yeah, I think it's more likely either the Mavericks or the Pelicans. I think Pelicans could be a good spot for him as they've still got an opportunity to give some minutes at the forward position, and they're looking for more shooting. So I could see that as a possibility, but not for giving up the first round pick. But if they could give up Josh Hart in return or someone else, maybe that's worth it, seeing that they just gave Josh Hart that extension. I don't know. I know a lot of people are high on Josh Hart because he's a jack of all trades type of dude, but maybe positionally and shooting wise, Lauri can make more sense.
Yeah. If the Bulls could get Josh Hart back, I think that would be awesome. I think I don't. What's his salary this year? I mean, they'd have to match. I guess if
They
I were the
just signed a
Pelicans,
3-year, $38 million extension. And so I don't know if that goes in effect this year, but
yeah. Oh, it
probably
does.
the
He
year
was a free
after.
agent, so that's about 13 mil. You'd have to
Right.
say Lauri's going to make around 13 mil. I think that's not the worst thing in the world for the Pelicans. I mean, he would have to be bench because nor him nor Zion can play center, so he'd have to be their 6 man at best, trying to find minutes between Ingram and Zion. I think he would play well next to Zion, being that he
Mhm.
is such a shooter. I think that's not the worst idea. I The Pelicans need defense anyway. But I think we'll get into that later. That's not a bad idea though. Um, no, yeah, Josh Hart would be great fit.
Yeah. So, I mean, with Laurie, obviously, he's kind of been trending down lately, but as a career player, 15 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game. So he doesn't really give you anything there, like you said. But in terms of just shooting, last year, he did shoot 40% from three last season, and his career is 36%. So optimistically, shooters are always going to have a spot in the league. And if he can keep it 40% or around there, going to love that. And teams are definitely going to be looking to add him. It's just a matter, like you said, it doesn't really give you anything on defense. And that's tough at the power forward position when you got bigger dudes, plowing through to get to the lane, and you're just kind of giving that up and saying that's all right.
Right. No, he's not that great of not that smart of a defender, and with his minutes and defensive rotations, a lot. I mean, he stays around 1.5 fouls, but he just doesn't get into that position where he could get even a block. And his defensive rating hasn't been terrible over the years. I mean, his best season was his worst season defensively, which kind of says something. Like he does when he's not going to put that effort on that end. I think it takes the right coach and personnel. I think the Clippers would have that personnel to maybe get that started in him, not even to make him a great defender, but at least have him buy in on that end. I don't think the Mavericks
At
can
least
get that done.
serviceable.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I think he's definitely a guy who obviously needs a new situation. He wants a new situation. We'll see if it happens this year or not. I would assume it does. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Another couple players we wanted to talk about that were in the rumor mill lately are a couple of Grizzlies out of Memphis. We've got Kyle Anderson and Dylan Brooks reportedly available for trade. Now, to me, I was really surprised to see that Dylan Brooks would be available.
Yeah.
Kyle Anderson, not as much surprised because he's in the final year of his contract and he's 28 years old. He's not exactly like a corner piece of a franchise, though he's a good player that, anybody probably be willing to add to their team if they need a forward. But again, Dylan Brooks, I don't really get why that's the thing.
I think it's the draw to try to get someone better, like a star. I mean, I really don't understand what the Grizzlies are doing. Uh, I'd be surprised what these trades are going to look like. Like they could literally be anything after watching the Bledsoe trade, the Adams trade.
Yeah.
I have no idea what their timeline is, but I put together a trade for both of them. Neither one is really moving in one direction. I think they're very stagnant at kind of staying where they are, but I don't think it's the worst return if they're just looking to deal these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So for Dylan Brooks, I have him going to Phoenix in exchange for Dario Saric and Jalen Smith. Now, obviously, he's the best player in that trade. Maybe they have to add a second, but they get Dario Saric. I think he can help as their backup center. They're maybe even a power forward if they play Jaren Jackson at center and they still want Brandon Clark to come off the bench. He's a decent piece. I mean, if they're looking to get away from that, but then they get Jalen Smith, who's a very good defensive forward, and that's what he was drafted for last year. It's just a little hope. He hasn't had the room to grow with Phoenix in their last run, so I think it's just kind of hinging on him doing something.
Yeah, I would say that's not exactly a fair offer just because Jalen Smith, I think the perception on him isn't as high as it was when he got drafted. So he was a top 10 pick, but I think a lot of people are realizing he's a project and needs a lot more work. And so maybe Memphis is the team that can take that on. They're obviously interested in some projects like Jared Culver right now and Daniel Turo.
Mhm.
But at the same time, Dylan Brooks is pretty solid. Like you said, if you're trying to get you dangle him out there to get someone better, why take two worse players in return?
Well, I mean, I don't think everyone around the league will value him as well as Grizzly because bird in the hand. And they're a small market team, so a lot of that is his role has just been bigger. I mean, his main thing is a shooter, and the best he's shot was 37 from three, but that was still 2 years ago. I mean, he's shoots at good volume and he's confident. They drop two a game, but last year was 34%. He's not a good defensive player, and I mean, yeah, he's good at playmaking for himself, but even when it comes down to him playmaking, 2.3 assists with 1.8 turnovers, that's a horrible ratio. Like in that way. So like he is a very good, and he's a plus player at least there's that, but I don't think his role's as valued in with other teams as Grizzlies value him.
Now, I've got a trade proposal for you. See if you respond to this one. Dylan Brooks to the Orlando Magic
Okay.
for Mo Bamba and Cole Anthony.
And Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, and I think they would have to add I mean, it's tough. Yeah, I guess Mo Bamba's value is very low. I think that would probably go through. I'd hate to see Cole Anthony go. Would it be imagined like a two for he'd play two or he would play the backup point guard for the Grizzlies? Cole. I understand Bamba's a good fit there,
I
but
think Cole would be there too. They could use a scorer like him.
shorter. He's a
And
shorter guy. I don't
he's a
know how.
shorter guy. I mean, they could use a bigger guy than Job, obviously, but I think at the very least you get a 6 man, like a solid 6 man with Cole Anthony.
Yeah, I don't think that's the worst in the world. I don't think it fits the Magic timeline. I think they're finally just going to take and stop trying to sell out early like they have forever in their rebuilds, like trading Oladipo early. Like they're not going to do that again. I really hope. I think they're just going to gather talent and see who does it. I don't think it. I like Dylan Brooks. I wouldn't mind that last year.
I
last year.
mean, I know the timelines don't match up perfectly, but in theory, Dylan Brooks is 25 and he's got a few more years of experience than some of these guys. You do still want that on your team. You want some guys that know what the NBA is like to help show these younger guys what to do. And you could give them a nice extension because you're not worried about paying anyone else. And maybe you let it kind of be his show with Suggs having a solid dude to pass to. I kind of like the idea of having an established scorer in Orlando.
Yeah, I think that would help them. I don't think he's the veteran that they need. I don't even think he's a veteran yet. But I don't hate him and anything. I just think because they have two guys coming off injuries, they have a number 4 pick. They just want to see how it goes. They're fully
Yeah.
prepared to be horrible this season.
Yeah, as they should be. I mean, if they could bottom out and get another top pick, that's ideal.
Yeah, maybe Chet.
If they
I
got
could take
Chet,
Chet.
that'd be perfect. I mean, Jalen Suggs and Chet both went to the same school.
Yeah,
They why not? That'd be great.
bring Mini Haha
Out
to
in Disney
Orlando.
World. Mini
Yeah.
haha to Disney World. Let's go.
But no, that's not bad. I think it would pass if it was a year or two down the road. I think and even if the players both stayed the same, everyone stayed the same too. I just don't think it lines up with them just starting their rebuild now. If they did it, I wouldn't be surprised. And it's not that he would make them win again. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it would be weird to see them give up on that. I think this year is Mo Bamba's we'll see what you can do year. He's going to either back up. At the end of last year, him and Wendell were both playing the same amount of minutes. They're starting one after the other. They're seeing who could do what. So I think we'll see a lot of that this year. But
I hope so. I hope Mo gets a chance. He's obviously a guy with a ton of promise just for his wingspan and ability
shooting,
to block and stretch the floor and shoot the three. If he can figure it out, that's a really dangerous player.
right? And so I also had a trade proposal For slow mo, actually, this one I like actually a little better. I don't think it's another project. If the Grizzlies want to take him on, but I think they get another serviceable player back. So it's Royce O'Neal and Izubuki from the Jazz, with slow mo going to the Jazz. Now, I don't think he's valued as high as Dylan Brooks, so I think this would have more of a chance to get pushed. I mean, passed by both teams. It gives the Jazz that power forward, another forward next to Boyan. That's not. He's a decent defender. He can play. He's a jack of all trades. He's just a guy that can come in and do whatever you want. That's what Slow-Mo is, and he can shoot a bit. So I think they need that extra guy, a little more extra star power. And in response, the Grizzlies get a solid defender back. I mean, Royce O'Neal was guarding some of the best players on the floor when he was there. He was their perimeter defensive lead. So I think he'd be a solid piece for them. It's giving up what they value as a little major piece. I guess he's not a major piece, but a good enough piece with the Grizzlies. Slow-Mo is, where they're hoping to get a little back. But I think this is decent return. And Izubuki is drafted this year. He was drafted because he was probably the best defensive potential in the league. I mean, in that draft, with his wingspan, his able to block shots, he's just non-existent offensively. Sure. So I think that would help them out in that end.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that would be an interesting spot. I think Kyle Anderson, Utah makes sense. I know they like Royce O'Neal, so that would be kind of interesting to see them part with him. But I know they're trying to get better defensively at the forward position. So definitely can see that happening.
He's not a shot blocker. I mean, what was he? But I mean, he was a solid defender. With his offensive rating was 108, which was serviceable. But you got to think of some of that's part of the team. But a block shot. I mean, he blocked 0.8. That's fine. This is center as a power forward
guy.
It's pretty solid numbers. And he played a lot of the on and off the floor for the them too, because Jaren Jackson was gone, so they'd have a small ball lineup with Brandon Clark at center, with Slow-Mo out there as the power forward, and Dylan Brooks would play the three. So I think he's a solid
passer too. He can. He's smart. He knows where to get the next pass too. Obviously, played with the Spurs. It's invaluable having Coach Pop coach you for a few years. So definitely a smart dude.
Yeah, I mean, 3.6 assists last year at 1.2 turnovers. If that was a point guard, that'd be a horrible ratio. But for the small forwards, like a tertiary, a third tier playmaker on a team, I think that's fine. That's good. And I mean, that's totally what he would be. Third or fourth ball usage on the Jazz.
Absolutely. Well, I think all these players are interesting to talk about and see where they might land. Hopefully, we'll get some more news here in the next few weeks, because I'm starving for news, and I'm sure you are too. But let's move on to one of our another season previews in advance of the 2021-22 season. This time around, we're breaking down the New Orleans Pelicans, formerly known as the Horny Hornets. No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't their name. Last year, they barely missed the playoffs. They had Zion in his second season, and they had a few new players from a big-time trade to get rid of Anthony Davis, bringing in a few new guys. So this is a team that's looking to get better this year, but they somehow got worse with some of their moves, in my opinion. And I don't know if you agree with that, but Lonzo Ball is a guy I don't think they should have got rid of.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we can start there. The loss of Lonzo really hurt this team perimeter defensively. Like, he was talent wise, he was improving. He was getting his shot. He was always a good defender. And I thought he was a great fit for the team, actually. Like, a great playmaker. He had great chemistry with Brandon Ingram, who was his friend. Been with Brandon since he was drafted. Zion obviously was working out well. It's just, I think not giving him back was part of that pressure of Zion's family being like, I don't know if we want to stay here. So that they jumped for a major change and they didn't get it. So.
Well, what's weird about that is they could have matched Lonzo the whole time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I guess they thought a change would appease them. That's why they kind of forced themselves to trade for their Valanciunas, which is now their big three, I guess, which isn't that great of a big three with Ingram, Zion, and Valanciunas. Uh, I
I like the
think
Valanciunas move. He's not good enough to be the third best player on a team, but I mean, last year he did have a solid season, averaging 17 and 12 with 36% 3-point shooting. So at least you add a little bit of 3-point shooting more than you had with Steven Adams at none of it, and he still gets 4.1 offensive rebounds. So quarter of his rebounds are offensive. So he's a physical dude, like Adams. Maybe plays a little bit differently, maybe not as good in the pick and roll, but going to help space them a little bit better, which they desperately need to do.
Yeah, I thought he was a plus. I think all their moves almost moved them laterally. I don't think it improved them that much because they never fixed that hole in the defensive end, which was their major
Yeah.
issue last year. But I don't think it hurts at all. I think Valanciunas is I think he is an upgrade over Adams. I do like Adams, but what Valanciunas will bring to the team helps out. I think what's going to hurt is Valanciunas isn't a good playmaker. I mean, 1.8 assists. I mean, he's a center, and it wasn't his role on the Grizzlies, so we'll see more of it. But he's got to be able, especially with Zion, he has to be able to find that next guy, find the cutter, stretch out to shooters, find them, because it's a lot of inside play, like almost grit and grind with this team, especially built around Giannis. I mean,
And it gets to
Zion.
be too much, and then the lanes get clogged, and soon enough you're 26 in 3-point shooting percentage and 25th in 3-point attempts last season.
Mm-hmm.
His
Yeah,
numbers gotta get better.
for sure, for sure. And so
At
it's
least we're good 2-point shooters though, or scorers. I mean, they for as many attempts as they had last year, they were 8th in 2-point percentage. So at least they were top 10 in that. They're making their shots,
mhm.
but
Yeah,
you gotta expand the game a bit.
yeah. I mean, they couldn't stop Zion, and it worked really well in Ingram's favor. I mean, Ingram 23 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 4.9 assists. I think he's the piece they need. If they have to give up him for someone else, I think it's fine, but I don't think it helps the team as much. Like if they were to give him up in a Damian Lillard trade, I mean, definitely him and Zion, but it kind of depletes the team to who, if they had, because they'd have to give up Ingram plus pieces, you'd have to think, and then they have very little left if they make that trade. I'm not saying they'll be bad. I'm just saying I don't know if it's enough to contend with.
I think
But
anytime you can get a superstar, it's worth it. But the other question is with Brandon Ingram being so young, can he still become that superstar? I mean, the guy's
yeah,
only 24 years old still.
24, he was awesome defensively. I mean, offensively, he was like a baby Durant. He's I think it's kind of the same deal with I was talking a little bit with Lauri. I think just like CP3, just like Booker had with CP3 this last season, CP3 Booker's never been a good defensive player. And suddenly this year he's gotten out, he's bought into defense, he's gone through because he had such a veteran leader like CP3. And I think that's what Ingram needs. It doesn't need to be CP3. It just needs to be like a PJ Tucker, I think is willing to push that team. And I think a veteran like that is what he needs to be like buy into defense, because that's really where he needs to step up. If he was able to do that, I think that's what would push him to superstardom. If he was able to use all, because he has all the tools, his
Yeah.
lengthy, he has the right timing. He just needs to buy in on that side of the ball, and I think that would help them out a lot.
From what I had heard, he actually really hated that Stan Van Gundy tried to get him to play defense, and they had riffs for those particular reasons. And like you said, he could be fantastic if he becomes a great defender, but I'm not 100% sold he has that mentality or wants to do it. He might just be one of the guys that's like, no, I'm great offensively. I got a max contract based on my offense and no defense. I don't need to change anything. I know who I am.
Yeah, I think it takes the right coach to install it. It's coach and player combination. I don't think one coach is going to convince him, and
Yeah.
it's not a good sign for him saying complaining about that. But
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely advice you get from your peers is absorbed differently than what you get from a coach. And I definitely think that was a big reason they were trying to get Kyle Lowry in here, a veteran who plays solid defense and could have stepped in and been their third best player, possibly their second best player, just like that. But,
yeah,
guys like that don't become available too often. Obviously, if you can get a defender who's still really good, but maybe not like a superstar still, it's nice to get like a PJ Tucker but where is that guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Kyle Lowry would have been great, actually. That would have been a great fit. I know they were after him, but that would have been perfect for them. But the guards they
Absolutely.
do have now, like I haven't thought about it until now. I'm like, who the fuck's going to be their shooting guard? And like Nas, not the worst guy in the world. Nico Alexander Walker. I assume he's going to be their starting shooting guard with Devontae Graham as their point guard. And he was very inefficient last year, but he was showing that he could step up and he could try to make those shots, be confident in his role. And that's really all you can ask for at that point from a guy, a roster of like non-shooting guards, Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo, and who's the other guard they just gave up? George Hill? No, I forget.
I don't remember. Sorry.
No, but if that's the best out, I think he's a decent young player. I think now will work out, but we'll see. I think that's just if you're trying to compete for a playoffs and you're just bringing in a guy who's, we'll see. I don't think that's good enough. But
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think Devontae Graham is a really underwhelming signing too. I mean, not as their shooting guard is one thing because they drafted him and they think he can excel, but Devontae Graham, we kind of already know who he is from his years with Charlotte. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess the only way is up from 37% shooting last season. I mean, it's got to be right.
yeah, I mean that was really that's his worst. I think I think that'll help out. His field goal rent will go up. Actually, if not, his true shooting will go up because I think he's just going to take a fuck ton more threes. I don't think he's going to be ever driving in the lane with Zion, Brandon, and Valanciunas. I think he's just going to hang out on the perimeter. I think he's going to make plays. The most interesting stat I looked up on this guy. So he gets 5.4 assists last year, but his usage rate is 21%. That's pretty cool. That's pretty crazy. Like it was at a 1.5 turnover rate. Like
Yeah,
as a point guard, I'm like,
that's really good.
Steph Curry is known for having a lower usage rate among about all-star point guards, and he gets like 8 assists plus. I mean, he shoots a lot, but he has like a 45% usage rate. Russ has like a 51, something like that. So have 21 usage rate. And get 5.4 assists. That's really nice, and he's not going to turn the ball over. So that's what I was most excited about after looking back over this. 38% 3-point shooter, 3.33 3-pointers made. I think he's a decent fit. I think they just have to fill that hole at the two, preferably with a defensive guy. Marcus Smart.
That'd be awesome.
That would be a great fit because he'd be that veteran. He'd come in and he'd be able to push Ingram. That'd be an awesome fit. But
what could they possibly trade to get Marcus Smart? Maybe, I mean, they got plenty of picks from their other trades.
yeah, be like a shit ton of picks. Maybe probably have to be Valanciunas, and then you open it. That's hoping Jackson Hayes is ready to step up to the five. I think the Celtics.
He's not.
He's not. It's just getting incidents on the side of the road somewhere. I think he has to figure that out. But no, I think Valanciunas would be a nice piece for the Celtics to be like, all right, that's decent. At least I think if they become frustrated after this year and they're like, you know what, we need a decent change. Our young core is not doing it. And I think that would be Marcus Smart's on the trade block there above anybody else with the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, they had talked about like rumors immediately as the season ended that they were going to trade Marcus Smart this offseason.
Yeah.
Instead, they give him the extension, and they still could trade him, but it's like they definitely probably aren't for a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very tradable contract. I think that's what they kept in mind when they signed him. But Marcus Smart would be nice. But
yeah, Marcus Smart would be nice on any team. But in terms of the guys that this Pelicans team does have, they have a lot of solid players heading into next season. And the main one that we haven't spent any time talking about is Zion Williamson. And he shot 61% last season on 27 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. It's a budding superstar. It's just a matter of if he's going to stay healthy or not. And to be honest, it's not a matter of that because he is going to get injured. He's way too big for his knees and the type of explosiveness he comes down with. I really do think it's just a matter of time till he has a major knee injury and he misses an entire season. And I know that sounds terrible to say, and it's like pessimistic or whatever, but it's way too much weight coming down on his legs when he's taking those extreme dunks. And he's already a guy who's limited in games. He doesn't play back to backs, and he's already that guy in his second season. He's not as is he even old enough to drink a beer yet?
Actually, I think he is 20, turning 21 this year. So, yeah, I know that's the biggest thing. I think he's injuries aside. I think he's a superstar already. I think he's there. He just needs to get that veteran leadership hump over with, like Giannis. That's what Giannis was going through. He's still a young player, and he was a superstar, but he didn't have that leadership. And I think that's what Zion has to work towards, aside from losing weight. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you hit it all right. He's got to lose that weight if he wants to stay in the league, stay on the floor, and that'll really help them.
Yeah. Otherwise, if he can stay on the floor and play, you're looking at an all-time great where it's Shaquille O'Neal 2.0, but this guy can make a bit more free throws and maybe develop a shot later in his game.
Yeah, I mean he shoots threes limitedly, and they're not terrible. I guess his shot form looks bad, but a few of them go in. I mean, his debut, he shot 3 for 3, so 4 for 4 actually.
Let him fly. I mean, whatever. All I need out of a guy like him is that he's willing to take the 3-point shot. Cough, cough. Ben Simmons, cough, cough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's I think he's gonna work it out. I think he just has to lose that weight. But
yeah,
absolutely. A few of the notable bench players. So like the thing about this team is outside of like the big four, I mean big three with Devontae, they really don't have a bench. It's not serviceable. I mean, Josh Hart's a nice piece. They don't have a 6th or 7th man. So, you want a guy to come out here and run an offense. They really don't have anybody to do that aside from Devontae and maybe Nah if you play him into some of the bench time. Because they got, Josh Hart, solid defender, jack of all trades. He can do a little bit of everything. That's fine. That's a decent piece. Jackson Hayes, still a project, still figuring it out. He has the potential. We've seen he's had some games where it was pretty decent, but not on their timeline. Trey Murphy has looked very good in Summer League. I mean, 16.2 points per game, 7 rebounds, 1.8 steals, 44% from 3 at 2.8 per game. I think that's fine. I think we'll see if it translates. Hopefully he's that 6th man that they're seeing. They're looking out and they're like, all right, you got to run the second offense. I think he showed that he could do it. He led the Pelicans. I think Pelicans Summer League. I think we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, if he can shoot close to 40% from 3 this season as a rookie, they'll gladly take that. And if he can do it on 3 or 4 attempts per game off of the bench, that'd be fantastic. So I think that's the goal. He is a guy that can push in fast break and help with their slow pace, maybe speed it up a little bit from time to time.
Right. The only negative I saw was that he wasn't that great of a playmaker. I mean, I think he only got like 1.2 assists in Summer League. And that's, as a point guard, a shooting guard, I don't think that's what you need. It's not a good size.
Yeah, that could be better.
Signal. Yeah, that could definitely be better.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say on that is like with Summer League, obviously with like a rookie in his second round pick, he's probably looking more to show who he is as a scorer and prove himself rather than help set other guys up. Mm-hmm. But he does need to work on that in the pros.
But at least there's so Satoransky's still off the bench. They got That's him. True. He's their Lonzo replacement, and he's a decent vet. He's not that vet that'll push him towards greatness. I think he would be a decent point guard on an already established team. I think that as a bench point guard, 6th, 7th, 8th man on a team like this, I don't think he's the vet you need. I mean, he's never really won. He's not a winning vet. He's just a vet.
He's not really an NBA vet either.
No, he's just a decent defender, nice playmaker. But that's out of that. If they can learn from him, I mean, that's fine. He's probably good for player development, but they're not trying to develop their players. They're trying to win right now.
He should help out their turnover numbers, though. They were pretty close to dead last in that category.
Yeah, he's going to be able to hold that ball enough and make efficient plays. I think that's really what bringing Devontae and Satoransky in was to help out those turnover numbers, which that'll help a lot. but I
Yep.
don't think he's enough off the bench to be like, wow, look at their bench. They have depth, you know?
Yeah.
And then
No
there's
doubt.
Willie Hernan Gomez, who will probably be their backup center. I mean, backup center, backup power forward. I mean, he's bounced around the league. He's just whatever.
Nothing there really. Yeah.
No. It was promised
Yeah.
when
It's
he was
not a
starting
great.
with the Knicks, but not
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. It's not a great bench. I mean, they're gonna need to hope that some of their draft picks pan out at some point. They seem to just kind of be taking bust after bust, but
Yeah, for sure.
you know, we'll see where it goes here in the future. I think this year for them, they're obviously shooting for the play-in, and just like last year, I think it's realistic, but it's also not likely either. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah. Who do you think's the starting five? I think it's pretty straightforward. Graham, Ingram, Zion, and Valanciunas.
Yeah, only one I'd maybe switch out is if they decide to start Satoransky over Nah
Yeah. I mean that could happen. I
or
think
over
they would start
Graham.
him at the point guard, yeah, and move Graham to the shooting guard. Actually, I forgot I had a note. I'm like maybe they would be suitors for Dylan Brooks. Get in that shooting, an extra shooting guard. I think that would be a decent
That would
fit.
be perfect.
They
I think that
doesn't
would be
help him on
smart.
the defensive end, but yeah,
Yeah, but
it's
they need scoring at the two, and he's a guy who can give you 30 points a night every now and then too.
yeah. I think he's that extra shooting. I mean, falling into his shooting role, playmaking for himself. I think the guy that go out and score. I think he's a decent piece. I think better than Na is at this moment.
Yeah. Regardless, I think we'll definitely see the Pelicans active in the trade market after the season starts and they have a better idea of who they are. And we'll be here to break that all down when it happens. You got anything else to say on the Pelicans, man?
I'm all good.
Perfect. Well, we'll sign it off here. As always, strictly talking basketball and the business, all without it. So we'll see you next time for episode 10, baby.